hope you're good. So, I want to talk about how to accept darker emotions within yourself. This is a big thing that I found with a lot of people, and it's so ironic because most people's shadow operates from darker emotions. As I've explained, the shadow is not a bad thing, the shadow is just unconscious, that's all. And it's unconscious because it's parts of you that you have rejected because perhaps other people have told you that it's unacceptable to be that, or you on your own accord have decided that. And therefore, there are whole parts of you that operate unconsciously, but they still operate and they still bear consequences in your life, whether you like it or not. So, what I wanted to talk about is how to accept your own darker emotions like hate and rage and disgust without dissociating those emotions from yourself and without obviously over identifying with any emotion. So, a lot of people want to think that they're good people, but there's no such thing as a good person. That's a fiction created to think that you are more lovable if you're good and that you're not lovable if you're bad. It's childhood conditioning most of the time. Most of us and most children even today are loved if they're good and punished if they're bad. So this creates an idea that you are only lovable if you're a good person and that bad people are not lovable. Nothing can be further from the truth. Love has nothing to do with your behavior or even your character, because real love is a gift based on who you are, both good and bad. And what is good and bad is very subjective. But what can happen is that there can be a strong desire to not associate with so-called negative emotions and to reject those parts of yourself and to repress those aspects of yourself. But the thing is, they still operate in your life. So when you're gossiping about someone, it's because you feel very low about yourself on the inside. It's the most pathetic parts of you playing out. But when you're gossiping about the person, you don't think it's because these pathetic parts of me are coming to the fore and they are feeling negative emotions about myself, which I want to project onto another person because I don't want to accept and feel this. That's essentially what you're doing when you're gossiping. There's no reason to gossip about another person because another person is none of your business. Their life, their choices, who they are, it doesn't concern you. You never need to gossip. But the pathetic parts of you need to find expression, and gossiping is how they do that, because that's the only way in your life that you allow yourself to feel or to embody patheticness in you, because you're a good person who's upstanding and blah blah blah. And so the pathetic aspects of you then sit in your shadow and look for ways to express itself, and the only way that you then allow that is through malicious, slanderous, savage, cold-hearted, cruel, undeserving expressions about other people, which only reflect those things within you. So true innocent creatures like babies, they don't gossip about people. That's why children are so unacceptably honest, because they don't see anything wrong with being truthful about how they feel about somebody. Whereas we've been taught that it's mean to say that about someone. Instead, hide those parts of yourself that think that, deny them, and then go be slanderous and malicious behind their back. That's acceptable. So how do you then accept these darker emotions that you feel, like your murderous rage, rape fantasies that you have, either to be raped or to rape, like disgusting, I mean, like really deep shit. So you may hear this and think, oh, because you don't have that you don't have dark emotions. Dark emotions can be the rage you have about your mother that you've never felt, or the disgust you have about your father that you've never expressed, or the hatred that you have towards your sibling that you can never feel because you're in a great family, right? So there's no room in your family story for you to feel and process these darker emotions that you actually feel. So I don't mean how to project onto other people. That's not expressing and accepting your own emotions. That's usually you don't want to accept your own emotions, and so you want to project them onto someone else. You want someone else to feel your venom because you don't want to accept it as being a part of you. And you've also just told yourself that this is venom because at the end of the day, it's just emotion. And when you allow yourself to accept those parts of you, so you sit with the pathetic aspects of you, you sit with your fear, you sit with your shame, you sit with your guilt, you sit with your disgust, you sit with your hatred, and you really understand and accept what it says about you. It disturbs your image of being a good person in your own mind. That's why it's hard to accept this. Not because it's actually difficult to accept it. You actually are built to process all of these emotions. None of the emotions that I've discussed are non-human in nature. Now, their expression, when repressed, operating from a shadow, can be grotesque. But the emotion itself is very normal. It's very human. And when you learn to accept it, that makes you a more expanded version of yourself because you are able to hold space for more of you without needing to keep the small good person alive. Small because it's very narrow to be a good person, and it's very narrow to fear being a bad person, because when some people hear this, the first thing that comes to mind is their own fear of being bad. Then they're going to project this onto society and say, oh, but are you saying it's okay to murder and to rape and to do all these horrible things? That happens because people repress those emotions so deeply that when it does come out, it becomes that grotesque. If those people took the time to actually feel those emotions and accept them and process them, they wouldn't do those things, because that is not what the true soul wants to do. But when you let it fester and sit and build in your shadow, unaccounted for, unconscious, unloved, unaccepted, it becomes that horrible monster that you then see people expressing. And that's kind of become a point where the shadow takes them over and they become someone completely different to who their soul desires to be. Because shadow work is about soul alignment. It's about coming into alignment with the whole of yourself, not just parts of yourself. So you may be incredibly violent when you're angry, and you may not want to do that to your children or your spouse, but you may want to express that to someone who is harming your children or your spouse. So that becomes the benefit of accepting this part of yourself as you. It's that there's a time and place to do that. There's a time and place to understand those types of energies within people. So if you integrate the rape fantasies that you have, for example, you will find that you have an instinct about how rapists think because you've allowed yourself to feel those emotions within yourself. And then you're better able to protect people in your life from rapists because you have an instinct about them that you otherwise wouldn't have if you'd repressed those emotions within yourself. And this is obviously taboo to talk about because we like to live in a society where there's all these issues, but we don't talk about them, love and light, hallelujah, and all the nonsense. But integrating helps you actually become effective in a world where bad things happen. It helps you become powerful in a world where powerlessness happens, because you're able to integrate the parts of yourself that resonate with the lowest parts of humanity and society and become someone useful in the world around you. So because you've accepted the lower parts of you, you can help someone from being scammed because you know how a scam person or a scam artist thinks. So now you can help someone avoid that. Had you repressed that part of you and never looked at it because, oh my God, you're the holiest person alive, your loved ones would get scammed, and there's nothing that you would be able to do about it because your instincts in that direction are so deeply repressed that you don't allow yourself to feel it because you're a good person. I'm not discouraging you from being a good person, but I'm saying that how you accept the darker emotions that you feel is to accept that they are a part of you too, and that the highest version of you is the version of yourself that is integrated with these aspects of you. The version of you that wins is integrated with the versions of you that are pathetic. The version of you that is loving is integrated with the versions of you that are hateful or fearful or rageful. It's not loving to avoid those things. It's loving to integrate those parts of yourself as you, and then function with a conscious awareness of these aspects of you as being yourself. So function with an awareness of your murderous rage, your disgusting patheticness, your deep hatred, your unloving self. Function with the conscious awareness of that and extend love to those parts of yourself, not in the hope that they will change. These parts of you aren't going to change, but when you love them, their functioning in your life changes. They become more useful, more integrated, more powerful in your life because you are able to accept those parts of you as you. You are not condemning the bitch in you that is murderous and hateful. You are integrating her and knowing when to be her. When is it wise to be that way? But you can't do that if you think that you need to be love and light all the time, and that a higher version of you doesn't feel certain emotions that are very human to feel. So you need to take it back to loving yourself authentically and loving yourself honestly, and not loving yourself conditionally, on the condition that you're good, on the condition that other people love you, on the condition that you're acceptable. But love yourself truthfully, love yourself compassionately, and love yourself authentically. Then you can get to the point of, why do you have this murderous rage? You can't get to that inquiry in truth when you're still rejecting that the murderous rage exists. You first need to accept it, then integrate and understand it and love it. Then you can understand why it's there. Because sometimes those types of emotions actually go away when you just love yourself enough to accept them. But other times they are such deep expressions of yourself that that becomes the format that those parts of you take. And then you learn how to use those parts of yourself constructively in a way that is actually true to your soul, true to your being, and not in a way that runs away with you and betrays who you are and splits your whole personality, but in a way that expands you, in a way that evolves you, in a way that grows you, in a way that helps you become a better version of yourself in a truthful way. Better not meaning good, better meaning integrated, better integrated in this world to deal with the realities of this world. Because I promise you, as much as this world needs love and light, we do not need it from beings who don't know how to face their own fear and darkness. Real love and light means something when you understand how to have empathy for and compassion in the fear and the darkness.